Video, we're going to work on a real example using cookie. And this case study is how do we implement language preference. So if a user access localhost 8080 cookie session demo, we're going to first present a language preference table or form, in this case form, and with three choices, Chinese, Spanish, and English. And once users select one language, as you can see here, we're using radio button, so user can only pick one, and user will submit to the backend, and the backend will create a cookie. The cookie's name is called language, or LANG. Is either equal to CN or ES or EN, okay, a cookie, and save it on the client side. So the next time user visit our website, we're going to redirect this user to a welcome page in either Chinese or Spanish or English. Okay, in other words, we're remembering the user's preference, language preference. So how do we start? We're going to start with the front end. If you remember the layout of our web application, there are two important folders. One is SRC. This is where you write all your backend or Java code, servlets. Okay, and in web, we store all the CSS, JavaScript, all the libraries and configurations. And right under web, you can store all the HTML, or in our case, JSP files. And here we're going to program a form in index.jsp. Now in this form, remember, this is the form, and the form must have an action, okay? And this action points to a backend servlet. Now remember, this is the servlet URL, and this is the context, which is in most cases the name of our project, which is cookie session demo. And the method can be post or get, but this case will be post because we're sending some form data back to the server side. And in this form, there are three inputs. So the first input, second input, and third input, those are all radio buttons. Okay, they are same type, and they have the same name. So name equal to language, name equal to language, name equal to language, but they have different values. Value equal to CN, ES, and EN. So if we pick Spanish and press the last input, which is of type submit, then language equal to ES will be sent to the backend. If we press the third one, language equal to EN will be sent to the backend. On the backend, we need to extract this language parameter. We want the value. We'll make sure it's CN or ES or EN, and then direct the user to the right welcome page in the right language. Okay, so the front end is very simple, just a form with action, method, three inputs, and one input is submit. Okay, now let's go to the backend. So in the backend, we're going to create, I have already created a folder called language preference. Actually not a folder, it's a package. On this package, we need to create a servlet that accepts data from the front end form. So go to Java class, let's give it a name. I don't know, let's call it language servlet. Okay. Now this servlet, how do we make a class a servlet? By extends HTTP servlet. Okay. And we're going to implement, in this case, only one method is enough, just do post, because we don't have, the front end is post, right? We only need to implement do post. Just type do post and press enter. And we're going to override this method. Well, you don't have to write do get. Now in do post, remember, we're getting the data from the form, and there is an attribute called name, right? Name equal to language. So what we'll do is, first, we're going to get parameter language, from the form submission. Okay, how to do that? Request. Oh, they're not using request here. Let me change this name. Response. Okay. So request dot get parameter, and the name is language. Now, so this name must be the same as, so let me see, the index must be the same as the name here. Okay. So language. Okay. and we're going to call this preference. Next, we're going to create a cookie, right? Going to create a cookie. So we probably can print it out for you so you can see what this is. So users language preference pref is preference. Okay, this is just for logging purposes, okay? And then we're going to create a cookie. Do you remember how to create a cookie? Cookie, just call it, let me import this. Cookie, new cookie. And we're going to call this cookie, just call it language. And the value will be preference. Okay, either be en or es or cn. Okay, and then we're going to send it back to the user, right? Add cookie. Let's see, C. All right, then we're going to redirect. So redirect the user to a welcome page. Dot response dot redirect. Remember, redirect. A new request is made, right? So basically, we're telling the browser, hey, I got a request. Now I give you a new URL. Go to that new address. Now, so send redirect to a welcome page. Now here I'm going to write this hard code this URL. It's called cookie session demo welcome. Okay, it's also another. This is welcome. Here is the URL of another servlet. We haven't defined that yet, but we're going to redirect this request to another servlet. Okay, so that's this one. Now let's define the welcome onto the same package. Let's right-click, new a Java class. Let's call this language preference cookie. Let's just call it cookie servlet. And extends HTTP servlet. Okay, and we only need to implement do post. Do post. All right. So in this do post, now remember. Oh, by the way, I forgot to add the annotation here. Web servlet / this should be. Let's go back to the index.jsp. Copy this. Make sure it's the same URL. Okay. Now in here, in this new servlet, we're going to give it a URL. Call it welcome. Now, so what happened is user first access index.jsp. Now pick a radio button, and the request is first sent to language servlet. And language servlet retrieves this parameter, create a cookie, and redirect to the second servlet. So this servlet redirects to this servlet. So they're both servlets. Okay, so here, and this servlet is going to serve the page in the right language, either Spanish or Chinese or English. Okay. So first, we're going to get all the cookies. So let me first write the pseudocode, then you know the flow. So get all the cookies, then find the cookie named language. Do you remember? If you have a cookie called language, we're going to retrieve this language and prepare the content in that language. And then we're going to prepare the welcome page based on the value of language. Okay, language. Okay. All right, so get all the cookies. How do we get all the cookies? Do you remember? Request. Again, the default name is not request. So let me change it to request and response. I just like it's personal preference. Request dot get cookies. Get cookies. All the cookies. All the cookies here, right? And we're gonna iterate through these cookies and looking for a cookie named language, because there are many cookies, right? Some cookie called Bing, some cookie called MSG, some cookie called G session ID. We don't want those cookies. We only want a cookie named language. So how do we iterate through a cookie? If you remember, we have for each. Okay, in IntelliJ, you can just type ITER iteration and press enter, and then we're going to iterate all the cookies. But actually, before this, I think for defensive programming, we should always be curious about the cookies. There is a possibility that get cookies return null. That means if this is the very first time fresh request, then request.getCookies is null. Okay, so we're going to do something like this. If cookies is not equal to null, then we can iterate through. Okay, then we can iterate through. Iterate through. Now here, else, that means it is null, right? If it's null, then we will ask you to select a language, right? That means you didn't really select a language. All right, so I'm gonna find the cookie named language. But before this, actually, I'm going to define a Boolean. Let's call this found, okay? And by default, it's false. So when I iterate through this, once I find it, I'm gonna flip it to true, and I'm gonna terminate immediately using break. Okay, so cookie dot get name. That's the cookie name, right? And if the name is equal to language, right? And here's how I do this. Dot equals, ignore case, probably not ignore case, equals name. Right. So if the name of this cookie is equal to LANG, that's the cookie we're looking for, right? That's the cookie we're looking for. So we're going to save that cookie. For example, cookie equal to, let me make this C here. And here is C. And here is C. Outside, I'm going to create a cookie. All right. So here used to save the language cookie. So I'm going to go through this loop. Once I find the cookie I'm looking for, I'm going to assign this cookie to the cookie I defined before I enter the if, okay? Because I'm going to use this cookie later on. All right, and then I'm going to get the value, right? Which is the value. All right, here is value. String is, here the string is preference equal to null. So preference is equal to c dot get value. So get value. And then we're going to make sure found is equal to true, and we terminate this break. Okay, we break this for loop. Okay, we break the for loop. Okay, we break this for loop. All right, next, we're here. So if we find language cookie, if found is true, we're going to prepare this page, right? We're going to prepare this page. Prepare this page. Basically, we're going to use a switch. I'm going to switch preference. Because we found it, right? Preference has value. And we got a case cn, and here content equal to here h1, I'm going to type some Chinese here. Okay, and of course up there I'm going to define content here. Content. to store the welcome message of one language. Okay. All right, and then don't forget to use break. Right? Break. Then copy, paste, and paste. The next one is ES, right? ES. And the content is como estas. And the last one is hello. All right, if found. This is if found. And then in if found, we're going to do this response.getWriter. We're going to write this welcome content to the front end .write content. Okay. Now, of course, for every case, you can do response.getWriter.write this string .write this string and so on and so forth. But I just want to make it more organized. Okay. This is if found. Okay. Make sure you don't mess up the braces, and make sure this is the if part. Okay, this is if part. I'm supposed to move this entire thing into here. Okay, let me make sure it's large. You can see it clearly. So here, if cookies is not null. Now remember, we have get cookies, right? Get cookies. There's a chance that get cookies is empty. If cookies is not empty, is not null, then we find it. Then we're trying to find. Now, if we found it, then we print it. Okay. So after this if down here, okay, after this if not found is true, we're going to redirect, send redirect to the index page. Okay, the index page. Cookie session demo index.jsp. Okay, and I hope you know all the possibilities. So let me walk through this before we launch it. Okay, so for example, now if we do have cookies, we will enter this if branch here. Okay, and we're going to look for this cookie. And there are two possibilities. One is we have this cookie called language. Okay, if we have it, then this is true. We'll print something back, and this if will never be executed because found is true. Now, if cookie is not empty, is good, and we search the cookies, and we don't find a cookie with name equal to language, then this part will never be executed because found is false. And then we execute this first if. But the second if will be executed because not found will be true. Okay, so that's number one path, number two path. The third possibility is if you come here, the cookie is empty, then this entire if will be skipped. Then we'll go directly here. That's not found because if the cookie is empty, that means we didn't find a cookie that is equal to language. So we're still redirect to index.jsp. So one important thing about programming is you can figure out a flow chart, right? How many happy paths are there? How many sad paths or failure paths are there to make sure that your program can handle all those different paths, right? Okay, all right, that's this. Let me launch it and test. All right, we start. Not supported. Okay, still not supported. Let me come back here. Why this is the case? Oh, maybe this is the case. Let me come back here. Now I'm in language preference. Maybe when I redirect, it becomes a get request. Okay, do get, and this do get dot do post. So basically, when do get is called, we're going to call do post. It's the same piece of code, just different request method. And don't forget to pass request and response to do post. All right, hopefully this time will work. And it is question mark. It's working. It looks like the browser doesn't know how to interpret Chinese. But let's look at Spanish. That's good because this is not Spanish. This is English words, right? And next is English. Is submit. Okay. Now how do we fix this? Now remember, we forgot to add something before we return, which is here the preference, right? That is here. Okay. Response dot set content type. So we're going to tell the browser that the stuff I'm sending back to you is HTML, and more importantly, the character set is supposed to be UTF-8. Okay, UTF-8, because Chinese is not in ASCII, right? It's not in ASCII. So let me do it again. This time it will work. Yes, it will work. All right. Let me show you another thing before we finish this video. I'll go to more tools and clean browser. Okay, clean browser. Now this time I'm going directly to welcome. Okay, I'm not going to pick my language and say I cleaned all the cookies. There's no cookie cut language. Now this time I'm going directly to welcome. Okay, serve me the page, but there's no language cookie. So if you press enter, I'm redirected back to the index page.